Glad to have you back, guys. In the previous video, I explained to you guys how I'm going to implement storing, retrieving, and displaying images in an application in a very intuitive way. And in that video, I just explained my approach to doing that. In this one, I'm going to be going through an implementation of that approach using some technologies and how all that comes together. So I'll be using React on the front end, Firebase for the image storage, Nest as the backend, and MongoDB as the database. Let's go ahead and enter a school name. Now, in this case, let's just select, let's say Cambridge, no problem, Cambridge. And let's grab the school logo from our computer. I'm going to take this one, this guy, data rich, yeah, out of this. So let me quickly open our console so that we can see the messages, which are going to be printed. So I click on save. You see the first one, uploading image to Firebase storage. It goes ahead, uploaded the image. It tells us that the URL to access the image is this. It saves the image to the backend, and we get a response object which has the school ID. It has the school logo URL and the school name. And actually, this has happened, and the school has been saved to our backend. If we switch to our backend and we execute this method to get all schools, we should get that school now, which has been saved, Cambridge, saved to the backend. And we get it successfully. School name Cambridge, the ID, the same ID as the ID we have here on the front end, and the logo URL to access the image stored on Firebase. And if you go to Firebase as well, we're going to see this image actually saved in Firebase. If you click on this, if you go to Firebase and you come to Firebase storage, which has the storage, image storage service, you have profile underscore images, which was the string we passed from our front end. If we click here, this is actually the image we passed from our front end, which is actually being stored here. That's the image. In that previous video where I explained the approach, I talked of the front end, we talked of the back end, and we talked of having an image storage service. Our implementation has Nest as its backend, MongoDB as the database, Firebase storage for the image storage service, and React on the front end. So here is how the application looks like. It's a very simple application to demo the ideas. So here we have the front end where you enter the school name and you enter a school, you select the school logo, which is an image. And when you hit save, we are going to make an API request to the image storage service. In this case, it's Firebase. We are going to store the image there, get a URL to be able to access that image on the internet, and then make a post request to our backend. That's still on the front end. We make a post request to our backend to store that image. And here we just have the Swagger documentation of our backend open with some few endpoints. So the specific endpoint which is going to be receiving that request is this endpoint post/school. It's going to receive that image name from the front end, and it's going to receive as well the URL of the image which had been stored in Firebase. So it takes the image name and the URL of the image which had been stored in Firebase. And we can now save that image on the back end. So that's generally how the flow is going to look like. And let's talk a bit about the technologies being used to implement this and how all of it has been set up. So for the front end, as I earlier mentioned, we are using React on the front end with TypeScript. So on the front end, we are using React with TypeScript. As I mentioned in this presentation, the image storage service has to be configured to communicate with the front end. In this case, it's React. So since Firebase is our image storage service, it has to be configured and its library has to be installed so that the front end can speak with the image storage service. And that's actually what we have just done in this setup. So the way we do that is, if you come to utils here, we have a firebase.ts file, and it contains configurations that tell this React project how to communicate with Firebase. So we have this npm library installed, we have Firebase installed, then we'll have this code, this file here, and the contents of this file is actually what helps us connect this React project to the Firebase project. Let me go ahead and just quickly show you how the Firebase project looks like. In this case, it's My Academia. If you look at the details here, it's My Academia. It's a project I just created on Firebase. And if you go into it, once you create a Firebase project, you are going to have this console. And the Firebase service we are using is Firebase Storage. That's what I earlier mentioned as well here. Firebase Storage is the service we are using for Firebase. So you get into Firebase Storage and you take a look here. Presently, there is no file being stored. You can do a normal upload here, but that's all we are going to be doing. We are going to be doing it programmatically through our application, and all the files are going to be stored here. So there is this information, the detailed information. Clicking here on this gear and project settings, you're going to receive this information, which helps you connect this Firebase storage project to your React application or to any web application. So the front end does not matter. You can use React, Vue, Angular, or just normal vanilla JavaScript, HTML, and CSS to build the front end. This configuration permits you connect your front end application to Firebase. So you grab this configuration, like in our case, you have the configuration here, and it permits our React application to connect to the Firebase project. So continuing with that, now that our React application is connected to our Firebase project, let me just quickly explain how the interface looks like, how our interface was built. Our interface here just has a text input for the school name, and it has a file picker, a file input to get the school logo, and it has a button to save. So that's actually what we have here on this interface. In the return statement, we have this first level, which has the text field to grab the school name, and we have this second level, which has the image picker, and we have the last level, which is for the button. So we just have these three labels: the name, the logo, and the button to see. So what happens? Just looking at this React component, we have the initial state for the school. The school name is empty, and the school image is not selected. We destructure the school name and image from here, and we have the image name handler. That's the event handler when the user changes or the user types in here to select the school name. So when the user selects a school name by typing in there, we'll call this event handler for school name change. And what we do is we set the school information to that school name that the user entered. So that's how we set this variable for the school name. We update the school name with the school name that was typed in that text field. And it's a similar thing for the image picker. When the user picks an image, we run this method that permits us to grab the image as a base64 string and set the image as well to the image variable, the school image variable. And what do we do after that? Now that we have the school image variable set to the base64 string representation of the image selected by the user, we can call this handle save school information method, which is the method which is called when the user clicks on the button. When the user clicks on the button to save, we call this handle save school information method. And this function, what does this function do? It prevents the browser from refreshing. We create the timestamp from the current time. We create an image which is created by concatenating the school name the user typed in with the timestamp. And we create a storage reference using this method from Firebase storage. So there are three methods from Firebase storage we use here to perform the act of being able to save the image to Firebase and get that string which we are going to be sending to the backend. We have the method upload string, reference, and get download URL from Firebase storage. So using the first method, which is actually to create a reference, we create a reference by passing it a storage. And this storage, if you remember, is the storage we got by configuring our React application with Firebase. It gives us a reference, it gives us a storage reference to our Firebase project, which is connected to this React on the front end. So with this storage reference, we now pass the name of our file which we want to, the name of the path to the file we want to save in our Firebase project. We create a reference using this reference method. We get that reference now, and what we do is we upload the image to Firebase. And this is the method that does it, upload string, passing that storage reference, passing the image itself, which is the base64 image. If you remember, we created, the user selects this storage, this school image, and we pass this other string. So when we have that, this method actually does is what is the method that performs the save and saves our image to Firebase. Then we now use this get download URL method to get the download URL, to get the URL we can use to access this image on the internet. This get download URL method, it passes the storage reference, which is the reference that knows where our file had been saved in Firebase. So we get the download URL for the file saved in Firebase. We now have it in this variable image URL, and which is actually the image URL to access our image, as we see. Then what we do now is we want to save, if you remember from what I was explaining, is after the image has been saved to Firebase, we will now make a post request to our backend to this endpoint to save the image, passing the image name and the logo URL, which is the URL to the image which had been downloaded, which had been saved in Firebase. So that's actually what the next method does. It's actually using Axios, which is an HTTP client, to make a post request to our backend running on localhost/school, which is actually the endpoint you see here, localhost/school. So we make a post to that endpoint, passing the name and logo URL, which are the parameters it requires here, the name and the logo URL, which are strings. So we pass those parameters, name and logo URL, to the backend, and it performs the save now, and it creates a school with that name and logo URL. So guys, that's it for the front end code and how the front end code functions. A quick look at the backend code to see how it functions. Our backend project, as I earlier mentioned, it's a project set up with Nest is the backend framework used, and MongoDB is our database. We have Prisma as a connector between Nest and MongoDB as the database client. It helps us to be able to perform queries to our MongoDB database. So let's take a look at that. Our present schema, Prisma schema file that defines how a school is being saved in our database. It's just a model that has the school ID, the name, and the logo URL. So that's all about school information. Then we now have our controller, which is the entry point to the different HTTP methods that can be performed on this. So we have the endpoint to save basic information for a school, which is just a post to /school, and we can save the school information. We have the method to find all schools, the method to find a school by ID, and the method to remove a school. And these are actually all the endpoints that show here in our Swagger documentation. The method to post, create a school, get all schools, get a school by ID, and delete a school. These are the methods that show in our Swagger documentation. And guys, for sure, if you're interested in me explaining more on Nest.js, Firebase, React, and Swagger, just let me know. Leave a comment down in the description, and I'll be releasing videos on that if you guys are really interested in that. But in this video, we're interested in just showing how image storage works and how all of that is coupled together. So the endpoint I'm going to be looking at in detail here, or we are interested in, is this endpoint to save an image. So the image actually, as we see, it comes in with, we take an image name and a logo URL, which are the two things you see here in this method to create a school. We take the image, we take the school name and its logo URL. That's actually what we have here taken into this method. We'll take that into the method save basic information for school. We are going to receive that logo URL and name, destructure them from the property, from this variable that had the school information. And what we do now is we call this Prisma method to create and save the school. So we call prisma.create, prisma.school.create, then passing the data, the school name, and the logo URL. And this is actually the method that goes ahead and saves the school information. And then it returns us, it saves it and returns us the school that has been created. So let's go ahead and quickly test this to ensure that, first of all, our backend endpoint is working before we perform the request from the front end. If I quickly go ahead, I enter a school name, try to save. So I'm going to click here on try out. And in our JSON, here in Swagger, I'm going to enter a school name. Let me just say Harvard. And the logo URL, I'm going to enter, let's just say HTTPS, pictures, let's say logos, /Harvard. And I'm going to hit execute. on Swagger here, see that I can easily test endpoints with Swagger, and it goes ahead, it saves that school with the information we passed, and it returns us a school, which is it created the ID, auto created the ID, it saved the school with that name and logo URL. And if you can test that as well by hitting this endpoint to get all schools. If we try to get all schools now, we should receive one school in the array. Click try out, execute. So we get one school returned in the array. So the school was successfully created. Means this our endpoint for saving schools is fully functional, and we can use that on our front end. So let's go ahead and just run this endpoint to delete the school so that we have no school in our database. So I'm going to copy this ID and delete the school by ID. Try it out. I'm going to paste the ID here. I'm going to execute to delete the school. So the school has been successfully deleted, and we can go ahead and clear these things as, So the school has been successfully deleted. If we try to get schools again one more time, we should get no school in this array because the school has been deleted. So if I click here, execute, see that it returns an empty array because the school has been deleted. And now we can go ahead and test this functionality from the front end. Let's go ahead and test this functionality from the front end. So we have this endpoint to be able to, we can create a school and we can get all schools. And we know that the endpoint is working well because we have tested it with our Swagger docs, which is linked to our backend, and everything works. So the endpoint is fully functional. We can now switch to our front end, and we are sure that if we execute, if we run our code on the front end, we enter a school name here, a school logo URL, and we hit the save. After the image had been saved to Firebase, we are sure that this endpoint is going to execute successfully and save the image to the backend because we tested it to be functional. Let's go ahead and enter a school name. Now, in this case, let's just select, let's say Cambridge, no problem. Cambridge. And let's grab a school logo from our computer. I'm going to take this one, this guy, data bridge, out of this. So let me quickly open our console so that we can see the messages. Which are going to be printed. If you look at our front end code here, I have some console logs which are very interesting. I have good console logs that can tell you exactly at what stage our code is in execution. So the first one is this console log that tells us that the image is being uploaded to Firebase. And this console log is printed just before we call this upload string method, which is the method that actually performs the save to Firebase. So when this console log is printed, it's going to take some few seconds. The image is going to be uploaded, and we're going to get now the URL for the uploaded image, which is going to also be printed in our console for the next console log. Then we are going to have a third console log, which is going to say saving the school to the backend, the school name and the school image URL to the backend. It's going to go ahead, save the image in the backend, and we're going to get a final console log that tells us that the school had been saved. And we're going to have a response data, which is actually the object that has that school ID which had been created, the school name and the school logo URL. So let's go ahead quickly and run this, and we'll see all these console logs taking place sequentially as we see them. So I click on save. You see the first one, uploading image to Firebase storage. It goes ahead, uploaded the image. It tells us that the URL to access the image is this. It saves the image to the backend, and we get a response object which has the school ID. It has the school logo URL and the school name. And actually this has happened, and the school has been saved to our backend. If we switch to our backend and we execute this method to get all schools, we should get that school now which has been saved, Cambridge, saved to the backend. And we get it successfully, school name Cambridge, the ID, the same ID as the ID we have here on the front end, and the logo URL to access the image stored on Firebase. And if you go to Firebase as well, we're going to see this image actually saved in Firebase. If you click on this, if you go to Firebase and you come to Firebase storage, which has the storage, image storage service, you have profile underscore images, which was the string we passed from our front end. And we now have the timestamp concatenated to the stream name, to the school name. If you remember all of this part, profile underscore images, and this timestamp concatenated to the school name is code which we had on our front end. So we have here timestamp, we have here school name concatenated to the school name, and we have here we prepended profile underscore images to the image name, which is the timestamp and the school name. So that's why we have profile underscore images here for this string. Then now we have the timestamp, which is this number, and we have the school name, which is actually the school name that was entered on the interface, appended as well here. So that's why we have this. If we click here, this is actually the image we pass from our front end, which is actually being stored here. That's the image. And the image URL was returned, which was the image URL we printed in our console log, and the image URL which we saved in our backend. So if we take a look at this console log, this image URL, by control clicking here, you see that you can access this image on the web. So it's actually an image you can access from any client, and you can display it on your applications. So you know the image tag in HTML, if you in the source attribute, if you place this image URL in that source attribute, it's going to display the image on your front end. And that's how your applications can display these images which you just saved. So it's same for the backend. This image now was saved on the backend, and we have this logo URL, which was the variable we sent to save this image on the backend. And if you copy this string, this is actually the string that links us to that image on the internet. And if you paste here, you see that we're able to view that image which had been saved in Firebase storage. And guys, that's my approach to saving and retrieving information, images in your applications, both web and mobile. So if you go ahead again and try, let's see, we decide to put Harvard now, and we choose a different image. Let's see, which one? I'm just going to take this Harry Potter and see if the same thing, uploading image to Firebase storage. We'll upload the image, give us the image URL for that image. We can access that image. Then it's going to make a post to the backend, save that image as well to the backend. And now we have the image URL. If we execute again, we now get 2 schools saved in the backend. And we have the logo URL here, which is the link which we can use to display that image at any time. So you see that this method is very efficient because we are no longer storing we don't store the images as binary. We are storing just a link that can permit us access that image on the internet. And we store that link on our back end. We can retrieve it on the front end and display the image, which is actually being stored in the image storage service. So guys, that's it for this video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel for more of this kind of content, and leave your comment in the comment section below. I'll get to you guys and be expecting more of this kind of content. Have a nice day.